about the uh, call it test method
I
on uh,
the email you sent
gear
me
modes?
on changing modes with the color thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did get that. I haven't really had a chance to play. It's been a crazy couple of weeks up here. So,
can't
oh
imagine.
yeah.
I
As you can see,
hate
Too,
moving.
I got my cabinets in, so that's half the battle.
Looks good.
Yeah,
too
it
many
was.
restaurants to go out and sit down and eat.
Kevin, let
They
it
have all those
go.
new restaurants
Kevin,
to
let it
try.
go.
You guys can eat outside now, in the rain, in the snow.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Um, we are officially recording, I believe. So, welcome to another fun episode, Photoshop Party. We're going to do some interesting things. I hope you find it interesting. If you don't, then tell me you don't find it interesting, and we'll go to Plan B. And if you got ideas for upcoming things, please let me know. I'm always looking for stuff to do. So, okay, so let me go ahead and share screen, and I'm going to share my desktop because I'm going to be going in and out of Bridge and Photoshop, so it'd be easier just to do my desktop, not just Bridge. And before we get started, a little advertisement. West Coast School um, hadn't had a chance to do fundraising for their scholarships recently, but on the website you'll see under West Coast School tab, go down and there's a scholarship fund donation. If you're so interested, $10, $5. Somebody gave a whole lot, a couple people gave a whole lot more this weekend after the board meeting. A couple of them gave $1,000 each. So that helps our scholarship fund a whole bunch, and it helps fund a chance for people to go to school on scholarships. So just go to the PPC website, go to West Coast School 2021, drop down to the scholarship fund, and it'll bring up this page. Fill it out, give your credit card, and you're good to go. And I thank you if you do it, and if you don't, that's okay also. So, don't save, goodbye. Let's go to Bridge. And what I'm going to do today is we're going to create something like this from a standard shot. So if everything goes right, we'll see what happens. And here is the original shot. Y'all can see my raw file right there.
Yes.
Cool. This is slightly underexposed, as you can see by my geese right here. So what I want to do is a couple of things. Number one, my camera hadn't been to the shop for a little while and had a couple of sensor dusts in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Band-Aid and Camera Raw, which is spot removal, and I'm going to click visualize spots. You've all seen this before, I hope. If not, well, here's something new. You click on each spot that pops up, and it will pick out a new spot where it's clean, and you get rid of all the dust sensor garbage that was on there. And it looks like I got them all. So I'll go back up to my basic mode. And I like actually just hitting the auto button. The auto button does fairly good at getting things started. And I'm going to make this guy even a little bit bigger. And there's a couple of reasons for making him bigger. Number one, you can see the red fringe around his feathers on the wings. So we're going to fix that in just a second. However, I want to bring up the feather tone on him just a little bit. So I'm going to take my shadows even higher from 70, bring up the shadows, and I'm going to bring up the blacks a little bit more as well. I'm not too worried about the sky at this point. And you can see that it's come up just a little bit from before to after. I'm going to add a little bit of texture which sharpens them up a little bit of clarity. And I'm going to close the basic tab. So I'm going to close the basic tab. Okay, never mind. There you go. Thank you. I'm going to go optics. My computer's running really slow right now. There's a box in optics called remove chromatic aberration. And if you click on the box, can you see that red disappear from around his feathers? A lot of cameras have chromatic aberration when they do that. And so that really helps a whole bunch. It does give a little bit of glow around when I hit the auto button, and I don't know what caused that. Bring my highlights up a little bit more, that'll help. And at this point, I think I'm good to go, and I'll open it up. And open, 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 open. Open, open. Wow, I'm running really slow right now. Cool.
I think Zoom does that.
Zoom and Photoshop don't get along very well.
No, they don't.
What I want to do is I want to put the geese on a separate layer because I'm going to add in another layer underneath it with the sky because this one's kind of a boring sky. So the fastest way to do this is hit my W key, which brings up either object selection, quick selection, or magic wand. It doesn't matter because I'm not going to use either of them. I'm just going to go up to the top toolbar where it says select subject and click on select subject. And you'll see when I zoom in, it does an okay job of selecting, just not a great job. So let's go ahead and go to select and mask at the top. Go to select and mask at the top, and finally it gets in there. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Z for zoom, just like on the regular Photoshop. And then I'm going to hit R for the refine edge brush, which is the second one down. On the left-hand side, you have refine edge brush. The one below it is just a brush where you paint it in or paint it out. So I use refine edge. And you can see the gray in between the wing feathers right there. So I'm just going to kind of paint over it and let it catch up. Spinning, spinning.
Michael, wouldn't the selection have been easier before you had opened up the shadows? Because you had a pretty high contrast image there.
Yeah, but if I open up the shadows in RAW, it gives me access to all the information that's in there rather than just some of the information.
Agreed.
I could use the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop, but some of the information just wouldn't be there. And it gives me a little bit more detail on the feathers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I do it that way.
Yeah, couldn't you use the original RAW for the selection and then this RAW in addition to it?
I could, but it's just
how do you go about doing that?
Let me finish this and we'll go through it.
Go
and
ahead. Yeah,
do
sure.
Another one.
Sure.
Okay. So I put this on a in view mode. I use the white. The reason being it's so high contrast with the white, I can see it better. If I use black, you can see very little of the edge. White works the best. You also have marching ants, which show you where your selection is. You can also use onion skin, but for me, I think the white background works best for being able to see exactly what was selected and to make sure that I have a fairly good selection. And you can see that Photoshop did a great job for me. There is a little bit of movement on the wings at the end. That's because it was in motion when he was flying. And when I save it output to new layer with a layer mask. Some people say just make a selection. I like layer with layer mask, so I don't have to do anything else. It's already there. It's just the layer. Boom, it's already been masked out. I can add the background back in again if I want to, or what I can do is click on the background layer so it's highlighted. I'm going to go back to bridge, and I am going to pick out a different sky just for fun. And I'm going to right click on it, place in Photoshop. So you can, on a Mac, you can control click, right click. On a PC, you right click on the image and it opens up the menu, place in Photoshop. And Photoshop 21 is currently busy. Well, I know it is because I'm working with it. Try it again. Nah, you're not going to play this game with me. Place in Photoshop. Okay. We'll open it up and we'll drag it over. Had it all worked out. Things were going to go great. So to drag it over, all you have to do is use the move tool, click on the tab up above, and then drag it down, then let go. And you can see that it's not even close to big enough. I don't care. What I'm going to do is something different anyway. So I'm going to hit Command or Control T. Let's put it about in the middle. There we go. I'm going to hold the Option or Alt key and then drag out, which drags it all the way out to the edge. There you go. So now I have birds above the clouds, which is okay. And I'm going to turn the birds off for a minute. What I want to do is I am going to go to Filter, Blur, down to Motion Blur. And I'm cranking up the motion up to max at a go, which is 2000 pixels. Click OK. And that makes a little bit of a different look for this. So go to history, get rid of the motion blur. You can see the difference in the look there. So now we have a fairly cool looking image to start with. And what I'm going to do is I am going to merge down the top two layers. So Command or Control E, which puts them all into one layer again. And I'm going to start building my artistic elements to it just to add a little bit to it. So I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and I'm going to add, well, this is fairly large. So let's go with 5 inches all the way around it, 5 inches. And the color, let's pick a dark grayish blue. Click OK. And it's weird, that didn't work right. Okay, image, canvas size 5:5, color still the same. And it's not giving me 5 at the bottom, it's only giving me 5 across the sides, which is weird. It should do about the same. But we'll work with it. I don't care. I'm easy. So what I'm going to do now is take the background layer, which is this, and I'm just going to fill it with the color of my background that it made. So I'm going to hit I for the eyedropper, click on the blue color on the right, which is the outside color, and then I'm going to hit Option backspace or Alt backspace. And what that does, it fills in the whole thing as that color. So whatever the blue color you pick or whatever color you pick, it fills in the whole color. You could go and find your paint bucket, which is somewhere, there it is, 3D material drop tool in the gradient tool. But I don't need to go find the paint bucket tool because all I had to do is hit Option or Alt and it filled in the background for me. So we're good to go there. And then we're going to reselect the top layer, which is the birds in the sky. And I'm going to put a stroke around that. I'm going to go stroke. And the color, let's go ahead and pick out a darker color. Click OK. Right now it's 3 pixels. And they say never make it more than 4. Well, it depends on the size of your image. I'm going to make it so it shows up a little bit. 6 pixels, it starts to show up. Because at 3 or 4 pixels, you can barely see it. You want to at least have a little bit there. Good to go there. So let's go ahead and add some glow to it, or outer glow. And depending on the size of your image, I'm going to put that in the middle so we can see the glow around the outside. Normally I run it about 41% is my opacity when I do this. Spread and size, which is down below where it says softer. It all depends on the size of your image. If you take your spread, you can see it gets a lot sharper there. So I'll take my spread back down to about 21. Size, depending on the size of your image. The bigger the size, the more softer it spreads out away from your spread. So I'll click OK. I'm at 191 and I'm at 21, but you can see my image is huge. Any questions so far? Going once, going twice. Okay.
Could the reason for the border top and bottom not being the 5 inches like you wanted, could it be because you expanded that sky beyond the region of your image?
It could be.
It's overlapping that map.
It could be. I don't know
That
why.
did happen.
I'm guessing. I'm just wondering if it
I'm thinking that's what happened. That's why I just skipped over it really quick and kept going.
Let's keep
But I'm
going.
thinking that no, you're right to bring it up. If that's the case, then you can also crop your image and then build it that way too. If you crop it without and throw away your pixels, then it should do it correctly. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Michael, when before you filled in the background totally, if you turned off the layer 1, you'd have seen that it would jump in to where it should have been.
Okay.
So it has been, layer 1 is bigger than the original image was.
Well, let's try this. Image, canvas size, height. Let's go with 2 more inches on top just for fun, see what it does. There we go. More balanced. Is that gooder?
Yep.
Okay. Coolness. There's always ways around it. Okay. My color fill layer, which is my background, I'm going to select that because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a texture to the birds, actually to the background layer to start with. So I'm going to add a texture and I'm going to go with my favorite called New Orleans 016. I'm going to right click, place in Photoshop. I got my fingers crossed. Hot dang. And that's going to work. Click OK. And a perfect texture for the background, right? And it's not quite big enough, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. Go to Command T. Drag it that way. If I hold my Shift key, I can stretch it. And in the bottom left-hand corner of my texture, you can see I've got a little bit of a brown color there. So I'm just going to drag it outside. It's okay if I stretch this out because I'm not worried about maintaining, constraining it, because if it doesn't matter. So that looks like garbage, doesn't it? I'm going to change my mode from normal to either soft light or overlay. One of the two works really good, and I think I'm going with soft light. So click OK, and that gives a texture to it. So we're good to go there. Let's go ahead and add another texture to it just for fun. And I've got a sandpaper texture that I like. And Bridge, this is my just cardboard, isn't it? So I right click, go to place in Photoshop. And again, it's very small. So I don't even have to hide the birds. I know it's too small, so Command or Control T. Hold my Shift key down while I stretch it out. Click OK. That looks really ugly. Go down to Overlay. Go to Soft Light. I'm going to go with Soft Light and add that texture in. But what I want to do is get rid of the color in that texture. So I will go to my Fill Adjustment Layers. And I'm going to go down to Hue and Saturation. I'm going to drop the saturation down to Zilch, which gets rid of the color. I might even lighten it also, or darken it, I mean. A little bit. Click OK. And just to make sure it just does that layer only below it, I'm going to hold the Option or Alt key and create a clipping mask. And now it's taken out this color and made it the color that I like with the blue. And I might even drop the opacity down just a little bit to get more color in there. Okay, so now I need to add some texture over the birds. Really easy, just like we did before, except I'm going to click on layer 1, which is the birds. Go down to Bridge. And I'm going to go to one of my favorite textures called Burnished. Place, right click, place in Photoshop. Photoshop's not too busy for me right now, so we're doing okay. Going to resize it, Command or Control T, hold the Option key to make it bigger. Click OK, or click on the checkbox at the top. And that's the perfect picture of a bird. Obviously, we want to change. I think I'm going to go with soft light. Overlay and soft light are my two go-to modes when I'm doing textures and working on that. And one last thing that I want to do is go to Brush, go to my presets, which is Collins logo. I'm going to add another layer above so I can paint it. My brush, add my logo in there, and I now have a finished product. I've got textures on the background. I got textures on the birds. Everything worked out really cool. Questions?
That's beautiful. Was that texture that you overlaid on the birds, was that burnished or birdish?
Burn like
Birdish.
in hot. Bird.
Never mind.
I got that one. It's called Burnished in my file.
Sure.
But if you want to call it bird-ish, you could. That's pretty good, Joe. Leave the
So
jokes to me.
Michael, your burnished layer, you applied that texture not only to your birds, but also to your background, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
So
here,
if you clip that into your bird picture, it would only apply to the birds, right? So it would be a different
yeah. So
texture.
here, what we'll do is
so yeah.
Here, let me turn off the There you go. It adds a texture to both the birds and the background, but if I did a clipping mask, so hold the Option or Alt key and created a clipping mask, it would just do it on the birds themselves.
Okay, that's what I thought. Cool.
And then to get rid of the clipping mask, you hold the Option or Alt key and click in between the layers again.
Very nice.
One other question, if your textured backgrounds, or maybe they were something else where you were more concerned about the quality of that image being used in the background, the mask, or whatever, would you then use a smart layer instead of just the standard layer?
Yeah, you can use smart layers. In fact, this is a smart object. When you place it in Photoshop, it becomes a smart object.
Oh, it did.
It did.
How smart.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Let's see
Yeah,
that.
you can turn that
Did-
on and off in preferences also. So if you
Did you
don't
say
want,
when you place something in Photoshop, it automatically becomes a smart layer?
it
Or it was
does.
already a smart layer, so it stayed that way?
Let me go into, see if I can find where it's at. Okay. The last one in preferences on general, always create smart objects when placing.
Okay.
So you can turn that on and off. I have mine turned on because I like having the smart objects available. So I could do anything I want to. In fact, I didn't have to do a hue and saturation mode above it. I could have just gone to the smart object and changed it, the hue and saturation in there. So if I opened it up and then desaturated it and then brought it back in, I didn't need the hue and saturation layer to make it go away. Okay. Questions, answers?
Might be able to save you a couple steps early on, Michael,
I bet you could.
if you'd like.
I'd love to.
I don't want to confuse everybody though, but essentially you're kind of using the same process I used to use until Photoshop came with the ability to crop outside as well as crop inside.
Okay.
So basically preparing your bird layer, prepare your bird layer, then simply put a new solid color layer below it, and now simply crop outside. And you've just saved yourself probably 3 or 4 steps there that you went through with this process. You following me on that?
I don't understand the crop outside part of it.
Well, it used to be in previous versions of Photoshop, when you did a crop, you could only crop down inside.
Oh. So what you're
Now
saying
you can
is
crop out.
take my crop tool and crop outward
Yeah, so all you're doing,
like that. Okay.
yeah, instead of having to fill that layer and go through all that, you just simply prepare your bird layer, your bird picture the way you want it, put a solid layer underneath it, the color you want, and then just stretch that solid layer out.
Okay.
And now you're ready to go. You got basically the birds. You can do exactly what you did to that layer. You can do exactly what you were doing with the various textures and what have you. You're just saving yourself 3 or 4 early on steps
Right.
that you went through. And again, I used to do it exactly the way you did it. And then I discovered, geez, I don't have to be filling layers. I don't have to be fooling around. I can just put that
Right.
solid color below, stretch it out, and away I go.
Actually, I have an action that does the frame with the shadows and the stroke and everything. I have an action. I just click on it and it does everything for me.
Yep.
So the steps, I just took the steps out of there because that's how fast it is for me. And instead of running the action, I just did it manually. So
Sure.
you are right. Doing a crop and cropping outside the lines will help that. So maybe I'll talk about that next week when I have a prepared deal for it.
Comes in handy in a lot of situations.
It does.
And I think a lot of people are not aware of that ability because for so many years, you didn't have that. I'm not sure how many back versions there are, but it's not that far that that became a new feature.
Yeah, it's,
If I understand, the crop outside is basically replacing the canvas resizing.
right.
That's essentially what you're
It's just
doing.
a different way of doing that.
Yeah, and by just putting a solid layer down to begin with, you don't have to go through the fill of the layer and what have you, like Michael did.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically this is the same thing with an eagle. I'm not even gonna do the whole thing, but well, let's do this 4x5 crop, and then we'll add another layer below it, but we'll do, let's go ahead and fill eye for eyedropper, pick that color as my background. If I want to pick my background color, I hold the Alt or Option key and it fills in the background color. No key fills in the foreground color. So let's go ahead and fill that in, and we'll drag it down below. And so let's do a crop, and we'll make it a little bit bigger like that. Click OK. Now, that didn't fill in the color though. Oh, I know what I needed to do. Let me go back a couple steps. Command 0, smaller, fill in content aware. Crop, we'll make it a little bit bigger. And we have content aware. Let's see if it works. Did not work. Okay. Or did it? Did it? It's spinning. It's spinning and spinning. Such a huge file there. Did it filled in everything with content aware fill. Okay. So just make sure at the very top you click content aware and it will fill in the sides for you.
Or once again, just put a solid layer there where you don't even don't have to bother filling it.
Right.
Solid color.
Cool. All right. Goodbye, duckies. And this was shot out of an airplane at 36,000 feet above the clouds and having fun. And I knew I'd use it for something. Worked really cool.
I was gonna say those are some damn high flying geese.
Hey, we got some
That's
good geese
impressive.
up here in Idaho.
Well, and the hill he's on to shoot him up at that high.
That's true. Yeah.
I tell you what, I was real high when I was shooting those geese.
So that doesn't count, Michael.
That's a really, really long lens to get a goose at 35,000 feet from the ground, though, you know?
Well, it's my 150 to 600 Cameron. Works wonderfully. I love it. Works great for sports too.
I don't want to hear about it.
You could rent one.
I have a 100-400 I haven't even picked up yet.
Well, you
Bought
need to
it in
start.
July or June.
You need to start playing with it then.
I need to get my ass out of the house.
Shoot out the windows. I mean, photograph outside the window. Don't shoot out the windows.
My 100-500 RF has been on back order now for a month.
That sounds
Any
like a
Sony
Canon.
shooters? Any Sony shooters see the announcement from Sony this morning?
Yeah, but I didn't read it.
The new
Alpha A1.
Matt Kloskowski's going to do a blog on it on Thursday, I think it is.
Hmm.
So, or actually this afternoon, the 26th. Today's the 26th, right?
Yeah.
This afternoon, he's going to put
think
out
so.
some information. So,
Okay.
okay, I can afford a new camera, no problem.
Well,
Quite
somebody
as
can.
expensive as anything else they have, I think, isn't it?
I don't even know how much it costs.
I think the suggested retail is $6,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the A9 is, but